For our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are universities still bastions of free speech? Cambridge University alumni are withdrawing donations due to an intensifying row after the Master of Gonville and Caius College publicly denounced a guest speaker. Now, the author Helen Joyce, who believes men and women are being redefined by trans activists, was invited to give a talk on gender ideology at Cambridge's fourth oldest college. However, before Joyce had even uttered a syllable, the college's master, Professor Pippa Rogerson, denounced Joyce, dubbing her views hateful and insulting. Rogerson's comments led to a flurry of alumni withdrawing financial bequests, and Cambridge University are yet to comment over the matter. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are universities still free bastions or bastions of free speech? I'm joined now by Professor of International Relations at the University of Exeter, Professor Doug Stokes. Professor, welcome. Thank you for joining me. First of all, what do you think of the sort of public denunciation of Helen Joyce? I mean, basically, they sort of castigated her because she was there talking about gender ideology, which I think she believes that men are men and women are women. What is your view of that sort of, you know, she's sort of sent off campus ultimately, not even having a chance to speak?
I think it's very sad. I think it undermines academic freedom and it's robbing the students. I mean, universities are ultimately there to promote debate, critical debate, interesting issues and open people's minds. And if you have a senior tutor, somebody from the top down saying these views are beyond the pale, they're morally unacceptable, and we can't possibly expose our students to these dangerous ideas and etc. And it's quite personal attacks. If you actually look at what she said, it wasn't particularly good. I think it totally undermines academic freedom. I mean, academics to debate amongst themselves, amongst controversial issues, no problem whatsoever. But when it comes from the top down and done in this kind of very weak language of therapy and protecting students' emotions, it just infantilizes students. And students don't want that. They want to grow as adults. They are adults. They should be treated with respect. And this is disrespectful to students, unfortunately.
Yeah, you say that, but a lot of these students seem to sort of go along with it as well in a way, don't they? Because you've seen them, I think they were outside and they were sort of, you know, jeering her on sort of thing and not happy with her being there. So it feels as though this is something that's actually from within as well. And this is perpetuated by a lot of those dons and those people who are academics who should potentially know better than that, surely.
Well, I completely agree. I think dons and academics should know better than that. I mean, but I think you're always going to get a minority of students that feel very strongly about various issues. But those people should be invited in to debate, or whatever. But that fringe minority or those opinions should be allowed to flourish, and they stand and fall on their own merits. But the problem is when you get the endorsement of those ideas by university leadership teams, that's when the rot really sets in. If you have an open debate where people can come and talk, you may be opposed to just what's so-called gender critical feminism or whatever your viewpoint is, come in, have a debate, and university leaders and universities should be there to sort of encourage that form of dialogue, that form of contestation. That's ultimately what progresses our civilization. When you have a top-down imposition and castigation, as you opened this piece up with, by a very senior person within the university, it totally betrays the value of the university system, and it is ultimately disrespectful to all students.
Well, Dov, stay right there, because I'm joined also by author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. Rebecca, why do you think universities are still bastions of free speech, if you believe that?
I think it's more that universities are no different from how they've ever been. Students have always been sort of liberal, left-leaning, and adults outside of academic institutions have always complained about it. It goes back, you remember the perception of students as hippies who were all obsessed with ban the bomb. That is a perennial feature of students, largely because people are more left-leaning when they're younger and often more right-leaning when they get older. And the current generation of young people's major focal issue is trans rights, or at least for a lot of them. When I was at university, it was proportional representation and when one friends of mine were at university, it was fox hunting. There's always something that's cared about very deeply. And you feel things very strongly when you're very young. This is very normal. This is no different from what came previously. I remember just after I left university, there was a huge furore about no platforming when they didn't want Milo Yiannopoulos to do a debate at Bristol, where I went. This is not a new issue. It's just that it likes to be brought up and presented as something that's unique to current teenagers.
I was going to say yes, but when I was at university, whilst we may have felt passionately about things, we still were able to have the other side of the argument, and people weren't sent away. Or I mean, it was a long time ago, Rebecca, to be fair. I'm old, but you know that other side of the argument was allowed.
Well, so I left university in 2014, and no platforming was very much a conversation then. I think the issue is that most people agree there are some types of speaker who shouldn't be invited on campus. So if somebody is an active racist or anti-Semite who says that a particular ethnicity or religion should be put to death, I think we would all agree that person probably shouldn't be given an opportunity to come in and do a lecture. The issue is where you put the line. Now, for me, that is probably the line. For some people, a climate change denier is in that side of things. For some people, somebody who doesn't believe in trans rights is on that side of things. And the difficulty is knowing where the objective line is.
Well, let me bring back Doug in there, because you can have a chat with Doug, because I think that there's an objective line, of course, but, you know, you should be allowed to have your view as to whether a man is a man and a woman is a woman. I just think that that's quite straightforward. But Doug, where do you lie with this?
I think I agree with what you just been said. I mean, I think there's always been this controversy, but my point really is that ultimately I don't, in terms of the ideological hegemony on university campus, it is what it is. But my main thing is when it's imposed from the top down, because I think that's where the values of the university system are ultimately portrayed. There's always been controversy, ban the bomb, CND, you know, that's a long history of that. But it's more about when you have this creeping authoritarian paternalism that can done under the auspices of therapy and protecting the emotions of people. And also, the law is actually very clear when you look at it. I mean, the EHRC has done some fantastic guidance in 2019. In fact, it's the lead body for policing, ultimately, the Equality Act, in relation to academic freedom and how that stands in relation to the Equality Act. And so what you tend to have in the university system is you have very powerful now EDI bureaucracies, equality, diversity, inclusion bureaucracies, using their interpretation of the Equality Act to degrade and ultimately to chill academic freedom on university campuses. When you actually look at the law, what the law actually says, it says you can't use people's perceived emotions, oh, it hurt my feelings, or something like that, ultimately to no platform other people. I mean, for me, it's really about open debate and pluralism and tolerance and equality of opportunity, and letting those things take place. And as soon as you have a top-down imposition, a therapeutic paternalism, doing it to protect the students' feelings, very much how it was framed in the Cambridge thing with Helen Joyce, that then is a problem.
Rebecca.
My issue with that is I disagree, because I think universities, if anything, need to do more to be paternalistic, I suppose, towards their students, in the sense that current students lost 2 years of their lives to COVID. They're emotionally, generally fairly immature. And we are younger now at 18 than we were 100 years ago because of the way that life works. And I went to Bristol, which has the most horrific suicide rate, because universities do very little to safeguard the emotions of their students. Now, where I agree with you is that safeguarding the emotions of your students is not saying we will not have people who are scary to come in and give talks. It's putting the support in place that if you are very, very triggered by something like that, if Helen Joyce being on campus for you is making you have suicidal ideation, you need help. That is a terrifying, awful thing. But her not being there isn't the answer. Better mental health support for students is the answer. And I would just say, I totally understand where you're coming from, but my stance is that universities should be for the students, and they are, broadly speaking, a lot of the time more for the research. And I think students should be allowed to do whatever silliness they want to, because everyone is stupid at 21. I was very stupid at 21. And they should be able to play nicely and grow up. My issue is when academic research is being suppressed in adults, in people who are postgraduates, and that in the trans arena is worryingly common. There was a university, I believe, in the West Country where somebody was given the right to do their their thesis in detransitioning and then had that revoked because the university didn't want to have their name associated with it. That is where I think you need to have a problem. Students will always be controversial and left-leaning, but these
Rebecca,
are
we
people
have to leave there because we've got to head towards the news now. But Rebecca Reid, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us. And also, Professor Doug Stokes, good to talk to you as well.